Welcome to another video, boys. Today we're gonna have a look at what are the best performing decks after the latest nerfs and buffs. A lot of people got disappointed after they saw the nerfs, myself included, and after you see the top 5 decks, you're basically gonna know why. Not much has changed, and it seems like the top classes will remain pretty much the same. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you do, a like and a subscribe would really help. A lot of you are still watching without subscribing, and that really hurts. But yeah, would be awesome if you drop a subscribe. Now, let's get into the decks. The first deck on the list, again, is gonna be a Paladin. Good job, Nerfs. Secret Libram Paladin seems to be the best performing deck out there right now, and it really comes to no surprise. It is still running first day of school, because it didn't really get nerfed, but it got changed. And for Libram Paladin, it arguably got better. Yeah, they're not gonna be having reliable turn 1s anymore, and they will have to spend 1 mana just to discover those minions, but getting free random 1-drops can really be powerful, and it gives the deck a lot of gas so it can reach its good turns easier. We have the secret package in here, so you can draw your stuff out of your deck easily with the weapons, and the weird secret here has to be Reckoning, because nobody really plays around that secret, myself included, so you can definitely catch people off guard. But if you're feeling fancy, you can definitely switch it up for something like Avenge and Noble Sack, because those two work really well together. We have 1 Panflinger in here, so you have an easier time picking off targets after you play Libram of Justice. We also have Caro Rome, so you can get your holy spells cheaper faster, and we have Teal and Forging, so you can pick off your Lady Liadrin. This version opts to not run Alexstrasza, even though there are plenty of successful lists that do run her. We also have Samuro in here, which also combos off pretty well with your Libram of Justice. From the matchups, from the popular ones, you basically don't really have any bad ones. Control Warlock is not too popular right now, and so is Priest. But from the popular matchups, everything is deep in the green, so it's gonna be pretty easy for you to climb with this. When going first, you're always gonna want to have your Eldor Attendant, Sword of the Fallen, and maybe even first day of school. If you already have Sword of the Fallen, Northwatch Commander also is gonna make a lot of sense. If you already have a good 1-drop, Hand of Adal makes a lot of sense, and Knight of the Anointment will always make sense. Libram of Wisdom should only be a keep if you already have your Eldor Attendant in my book, and I don't really approve keeping Eldor Truthseeker when you're going first, but maybe if you're curving into it, you could. Other than that, I'd say anything else is a dump. Also, when you're going first, Galloping Savior makes a lot more sense because your opponent has the coin, so it's gonna be easier for them to proc it. When on the coin, the situation is pretty much the same, although surprisingly Galloping Savior makes it all the way to the top, but I guess it's kind of a way for you to always proc your Northwatch Commander. But I would definitely prefer getting Sword of the Fallen and Northwatch Commander than just keeping a Galloping Savior. Eldor Truthseeker becomes a little more keepable, but anything more expensive than that is gonna be a dump for you, obviously. The deck is definitely very powerful right now, and it keeps on dodging nerfs like there's no tomorrow. Libram Paladin has been a top deck ever since the buff to Eldor Attendant, probably more than a year ago, so I guess at this point I'm not even sure I should be warning you about nerfs. It seems like it just doesn't care about him, so I guess craft away. Other than that, for Paladin, Secret Paladin is working still, and so is Aggro Paladin, even though the Murloc got hit. But yeah, all in all, Paladin is still pretty much at the top, even after the second wave of nerfs at it. The next deck on the list is again another offender that didn't really care about the nerfs. No Minion Mage. Good job, Liz. Refreshing Spring Water at 5 definitely fixed everything. Hands down, you hit the nail on the head pretty hard. Sure. I don't know, guys. I'm really disappointed that Encanter's Flow did not get nerfed. It's unbelievable, honestly. The card has literally no restriction. It takes no skill to have it on turn 2 and play it. It's just basically, if you have this in your hand, you're probably gonna win your game. And I really don't think Hearthstone should feel that way. Look at this. If you have Encanter's Flow in your mulligan as first, you have 72% win rate. Is that really okay, Blizz? Is that how Hearthstone is supposed to feel? I don't know, dudes. It's just disappointing, honestly. Same situation on the coin. Literally 10% difference from your second best card to keep, which is Refreshing Spring Water. Surprisingly, the nerfed card. Very nerfed, very unplayable now, right? But yeah, no Minion Mage is still very good in skilled hands. It has a lot of RNG pop-off, the 5-drop minions from the Apex Blast are so huge right now, Font of Power usually gives you great minions, Primordial Studies always gives you great minions. With Ring Toss, you're almost always guaranteed to get the secrets you exactly need because there are so few secrets in the standard pool right now. So yeah, even though the deck is supposed to be RNG, you're basically picking off the best things from that RNG. I'm not saying the deck is easy to play, I'm just saying that if you're skilled with the deck, your opponent is really not gonna have anything to do against you. At least in most cases. Especially if you got both your Encanter's Flow. Anyway, here's what the matchups look like. Soul Demon Hunter would be somewhat a problem for you, but I haven't seen those in quite a while. Token Druid can be trouble. Same goes for Face Hunter, which is the natural predator for Mage most of the time. Secret Paladin will be hard against you, and same goes for Secret Libram Paladin. You're gonna be great against priests, against most rogues, aside from Poison Rogue, which you don't usually see. Shaman is still not a class, but even if it was, you're gonna be great against them. You're very good against warlocks, and same goes for warriors. For the mulligan guide, when you're going first, if you don't have Enchanter's Flow, usually you toss everything in hopes of getting it. But Font of Power also makes the cut, so you can actually be proactive because you're on the play. If you already have Encanter's Flow, you can keep Refreshing Spring Water or Arcane Intellect as well. Primordial Studies is also not a bad card, but I don't think you need to be keeping it if you don't have Encanters already. Other than that, I don't think you can afford to keep anything else. When on the coin, again, hard mulligan for Encanter's Flow, but if you don't have Encanter's Flow, you could keep a reactive spell if you're worried about the opponent. But usually, you just toss everything and hope you get the flow. Statistically speaking, more often than not, you will be rewarded for that. Spell Mage is one of the cheapest decks out there, so it's definitely worth the craft. It's still very strong, as long as you know what you're doing with it, and there are plenty of versions of it too. Some still opt for Deck of Lunacy, which is still good, but it definitely makes it harder to just play it on 4 and nothing else. Other people don't even run Flame Strike anymore, but I still believe it has room in the deck. Other working mage archetypes would be the Spell Damage Mage, but obviously no minion would be a lot better for you. Since no Minion Mage is still a good deck, so is Face Hunter. This version is slightly more control-y since we're running the Ace Hunter, so you can actually retain your minions after you do some trades. And we also have the True Aim Crescent, which can actually be pretty crazy for you. You can also combo it with the Ace Hunter if you want to get through some chunky taunt and keep your minions. But its main purpose is actually so you can double trade with your Trampling Rhino, which is gonna be huge. Last night, Killin' All Day destroyed Monsanto with exactly that. Equipping the True Aim Crescent and getting your Rhino off a Warsong Wrangler basically guarantees you a 7/6 Rhino. So if your opponent played 2 minions, what you wanna be doing is drop the Rhino and decide how you wanna make the trades. You can either start off with rushing with the Rhino first and killing 1 minion, or using your weapon into a minion, so the Rhino follows, and after that you get to follow with the Rhino again, and you can do absurd amounts of damage that way. Even though Mankrik got nerfed, it's still obviously a part of the deck. It's just too good to fish out the wife with Barak Kodobane, even though that interaction happens more rarely than you would think. The rifle is still pretty good, because you get to choose from a very small secret pool, so again, you will probably always get what you're looking for, or at least something very close. Other than that, the deck is pretty standard. For the matchups, like we already said, Secret Libram Paladin will be a problem, and same goes for Control Priest, even though there are not that many on ladder right now. Rush and Control Warrior would be your other 2 worst matchups, but all in all, it should be good for you. For the mulligan, when you're going first, you're always gonna want your Interpid, Mankrik, Imprisoned Felmaw, and some of your good early game spells. When you're going first, it's not gonna be a great idea for you to be taking Kolkar Packrunner, unless you really think you will be able to stick it on turn 2 so you can follow up with a lot of spells on turn 3. You obviously never keep Rhino, Quick Shot, Piercing Shot, and even Barak, because it's kinda too slow. Tracking is also something you shouldn't be keeping, because you basically want to be using tracking for when you really need to find something and not just because it's playable. When on the coin, Kolkar Packrunner becomes a lot more keepable because you can do crazy things with it as soon as turn 2 with the coin, and a 1-drop spell. Mankrik again pretty good, and even the rifle becomes a lot more keepable. With Ace Hunter you can also do some value trades, and Warsong Wrangler would not be that bad of a keep if you're curving into it too. Kodobane can be a lot more keepable for you in this case, but you need to be curving into it. And it would be especially good if you already have Mankrik in hand as well. For a Face Hunter deck, this one is actually quite expensive, so you will need to think twice if you really want to be crafting it. Ace Hunter would be a possible card you might not want to craft, because the deck is gonna work probably just as well without it too. But Barak and the rifle would definitely be worth it for you. At least Mankrik is free, so you got that going. For Hunter, there are not really that many other working archetypes right now other than Face Hunter. But it's definitely worth mentioning Lerock's OTK, which is also doing quite alright. Next up, it's Token Druid. Token Druid is still pretty good in skilled hands, and it can really pop off as soon as turn 1, which really feels absurd a lot of the times. It did not get nerfed in any of the patches so far, and it has been consistently decent throughout the entire expansion so far. There's not that much to discuss here other than guidance, which is a cool way for you to actually increase the spell count in your hand for a bigger glowfly swarm, or just to pick off something decent. We also have one Soul of the Forest in here, which can make your board really sticky for the opponent, but other than that, it's pretty standard and it's still working great. For the matchups, Secret Paladin will be a problem somewhat, and Control Priest is also slightly negative, but your worst nightmares will be Control Warrior and Rush Warrior usually. The good news is, you're gonna be good against Face Hunters, against no Minion Mage, and against Libram Paladin usually. So you got that going for you, which is nice. When going first with this deck, usually it's actually worse for you, because you're not gonna have your coin, which can really help you pop off with your Gibberling. But yeah, when you're going first, you wanna increase your hand size with Fungal Fortunes and follow up with a huge Glowfly Swarm. Preferably as soon as turn 4, because you have plenty of ways to cheat out mana with Innervate and also Lightning Bloom. Guess the weight is also pretty good, because it's basically a 2 mana draw 2 cards, but you might still be able to pop off with it with something like a Gibberling, Adorable Infestation, Innervate, Nature Studies, and stuff like that. But you gotta be careful, and make sure not to waste the discount from Nature Studies. 1 second, the Glowfly Swarm plan is still pretty good with the Fungal Fortunes, but the Gibberling plan becomes a lot more pro-dominant. You can either do it as soon as turn 1, with the help of the coin and some cheap 1-drop spells, or you can set it up with Nature Studies, and then use your Gibberling into spells, into coin, into spells, into coin, into so far and so forth. It's a really high skill cap deck, and you really gotta know what you're doing with it to make it work perfectly. Right now it feels like this mulligan is all over the place, but you really have to realize that you have to be keeping cards according to the game plan that is starting to reveal in your hand. For instance, if you already have the Gibberling, Adorable Infestation becomes a lot more keepable in my book, and so is Power of the Wild. So basically, you really gotta understand what you're going for and mulligan accordingly. This deck is very cheap, and it's dodging the nerfs, so yeah, it's probably worth it for you to have it in your arsenal. There are plenty of other Druid decks out there right now, with Primordial Druid at the top. Miracle Celestial Druid is also trying to do something, but the win rate is very low, mainly because the deck is very hard to pilot masterfully, but it can also just be kinda bad. And the last deck on the list is again gonna be Lifesteal Demon Hunter. After the nerfs to the other decks, it seems like the deck went back to its roots, and now it stopped running the Inquisitors. The list goes really hard on the spell damage and lifesteal spells, and it has a ton of card draw as ever. It's still very hard to pilot masterfully, and it's gonna feel bad if you're not good with it. But if you really take your time with this deck and know all of the breakpoints and combos and what you can afford to lose in order to postpone the game till the time you can actually pop off with your OTK is gonna be really crucial. This version opts for 1 acidic Swamp Ooze because there are plenty of weapons in the meta right now, but all in all, everything else feels pretty standard. There's only 1 Raging Fell Screamer in this deck, so you can cheat out your Morgue Artificer easily. But what's interesting is that you actually have 5 spell damage minions now, which helps you use them in the early game a lot more freely. I can't really show you too much matchups here, but all in all, Priest will be bad for you because Elusha can break your combo a lot of the time. Pros are saying that as long as you're good with this deck, there are really no bad matchups, but it will definitely take you a while to actually get good with it. It's not an expensive deck, so it's definitely worth the craft as long as you're up for the challenge to actually learn it. You really need to do your homework with it before that though, and know exactly what you need to do with it to achieve what amounts of damage, because if you just start jamming it, you're not really gonna learn anything with it. Other than that, for Demon Hunter, right now Death Rattle Demon Hunter seems to be the flavor of the month, and people are even running it with an Azat, because it feels really good to get it off from the Illidari Inquisitor on a turn where you can actually hero power as well. Mid-range Demon Hunter is still a thing as well, even though not as good, and it seems like that Soul Demon Hunter is not even on the charts right now. So these were 5 of the best performing decks so far. Now let's check out what are the other working archetypes for the classes we didn't mention, starting off with Priest. It seems like the Casterian nerf actually dropped the win rate for Priest a lot, and even in top 1000 Legend not many people are having success with it. From Diamond to Legend, it seems like Heal Priest is doing best so far, but we also have Control Priest, and Corrupt Priest is trying to utilize the new buff on the Dark Inquisitor Zanish. But yeah, even though Priest can feel super unfair sometimes, the win rates are not that high for it right now, and you really need to be very good with it to actually win more than lose. With Rogue, there are 3 main versions that are working great right now: Secret Rogue, Miracle Rogue, and also Poison Rogue. Secret Rogue and Miracle Rogue seem to be doing best right now, especially if you're very good with them. But keep in mind, they have a very high skill cap. For Shaman, so far the buffs haven't really done much, but Elemental Shaman seems to be doing something right now, with a version that seems to be a little more control-y. We also have Aggro Shaman back in the rotation, but this list doesn't really seem to be running anything that actually got buffed. Other than that, everything else seems to be still dumpster. For Warlock, the only working archetype would still be Control Warlock, even though some people are trying to have fun with Delete Warlock as well. And for Warrior, the Rush archetype still seems to be doing best, even though after the nerf it seems to feel a little bit more underwhelming now. Control Warrior is also emerging, but as you can see, the stats don't really back up too much for it. So that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what deck you wanna be playing in the new meta. I would really appreciate it if you drop a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe if you're new. And also, don't forget to check me out on twitch.tv. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05 and I'll see you on my next video or stream.